Hello, and welcome to, hopefully, my biggest video yet on Marcus Talks. I have decided that now is a good time to talk about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this will not be a normal review, mainly because this game has been out for 5 years. 5 years. But it still feels like I need to praise and critique this massive game, even if I won't properly be able to cover everything in a 10 to 20 minute video. And my views on this game most likely don't line up with most people. So here's to being as controversial as possible. Before I say anything really, many people have claimed this is the best Zelda game ever because it's nothing like a Zelda game. That's a stupid way to judge something. At least say why being different makes it better than the older ones. I personally don't even feel this is a Zelda game, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for that. And please keep in mind that I do not hate this game, and I think it is very good. It just has some problems. But without further ado, let's get right into it. And we're going to start with the gameplay. Being an open, air quotes, air game, Breath of the Wild's world can feel very empty when comparing it to a game like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess. This is not a big issue. Both games I just mentioned had relatively empty worlds, is what I would be saying if it wasn't just the one area meant for a cinematic set piece like in Twilight Princess. Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess both circumvent this issue by putting worthwhile collectibles in the empty space. Breath of the Wild puts Korok seeds, if you're lucky. Most likely you'll find a weak enemy, some mushrooms, or literally nothing. All of the major collectibles, such as a piece of heart or a new item, has been replaced with useless consumables. This is my biggest problem with the world as a whole, but it has glimmers of hope when you're just wandering around doing nothing. Again, is what I would be saying if you didn't bump into a pointless enemy camp or a guardian fight, which get very boring after a while. It's still very impressive they were able to fill the world with as much as they did, however. I don't think I could have filled it with as much. Probably not even a world half the size. The side quests feel very empty in this game. Most of them boil down to, hey, you there, get me this many of this random item you've been picking up for 100 hours, and I'll give you 50 rupees, or if I'm feeling really generous, a piece of clothing. The main problem is the item you would do a side quest for in the older titles has been replaced by the spirit orbs, on top of not knowing what the item you're getting is in the first place. Which brings me to the shrines. The shrines feel very hollow, shall I say? Most of the puzzles feel like, here, shake this box to make the colored balls fall out, then just say how many of each color there are, and just sort of stack these metal cubes on top of each other and hope to God they don't fall while you are climbing. And my personal favorite, hey, fight this robot until one of you dies. And since they don't involve special items, they all start to feel a little samey after especially doing 120 of them. Oh, and speaking of fighting, the combat. It's there, and about as unbalanced as the puzzles. The majority of fights that'll occur will boil down to, okay, I'll go into bullet time and headshot everyone, or I'll use my melee weapon and use a flurry rush, which is basically just on-ground bullet time, and kill everything. The three melee weapons types are fairly balanced, except for the spears. The swords and two-handed weapons have their advantages. Swords can hit very quickly, and you can use a shield. Two-handed weapons can hit very hard and stun enemies at the cost of speed and using a shield. Spears, on the other hand, are really fast, don't deal a lot of damage, and you can't use a shield. Most weapons have a charged attack. Swords use a spin attack. Two-handed weapons use a continuous spin attack, and spears do a fast rapid jab that most enemies can just hit you while you are hitting them. Now, bows are broken. Bullet time trivializes most enemy and boss encounters. It was not balanced well and has no major downsides to being used repeatedly. Oh, and the bosses? They just aren't fun. Main reason being is you fight them the same way as every normal enemy. I think that's a good stopping point for gameplay, don't you? The story of Breath of the Wild is almost ruined by the fact you don't have a set order of experiencing it. Example, let's just say I just saw the next to last story event, but I still haven't found the first one. The other problem with the story is it's already happened, and you're just helping Link remember stuff. What is Link's motivation? If you skip all of the story events, is he just motivated by a deep sense of responsibility? If you find every memory, it's clear that he is motivated to avenge his friends and save Zelda, but when the story isn't required, it can feel hollow seeing all these characters that are practically throwaways. A game at Twilight Princess has very clear motivations for that version of Link. He wants to save his friends and loved ones. But over time, you see him grow closer to the other characters around him, and he feels he needs to save everyone, not just his little world. My biggest problem, how many times have I said this so far, is that the best memory cutscenes are in the DLC. So the best showcases for the characters are extra content that wasn't originally thought of. Great. Well, I feel like I've complained enough about this, so let's move on to one of my favorite things in games, the music. The music of Breath of the Wild is some of the best in the series when you actually get to hear it. But most of the time, it's just which is fine sometimes. And how many people will say, well, if you had normal Zelda music constantly playing, it would drive you insane. But to disprove this point, a recent Breath of the Wild-like game in the Pokemon series, Legends Arceus, however you pronounce it, has shown us that games like this can have music in the background and not get irritating. Now, the tracks in the villages and during some cutscenes are great. The shrines and most combat or fights have very uninteresting music backing them. I can't really say much more about what's not there. But with that, let's move on to the graphics. The graphics are very well done. The landscapes and many of the plants are very well done. Seeing large structures such as the entirety of a village loop around a giant rock spire is very nice to look at. While at the same time, a village designed almost like a fountain, situated at the bottom of several waterfalls, looks equally amazing. The textures of most objects are very well done as well, with some minor exceptions in regards to the style you're going to see for so much of one playthrough, the Sheikah shrines and technology art style. It gets very old to look at the muted blacks and tans of these locations very quickly, and when all 120 of the puzzle locations have the same look, it gets even more annoying that none of them had any major design differences. And with that, I feel I've said all I have to say. Now, normally I would score a game at this portion, but I don't feel I can give this game a score for many reasons. 1. Due to how long I've had to nitpick many of its shortcomings. And 2. The mere fact that it is a game of this scale means that no two people's playthroughs were the same. And in many ways, that's a good thing. Everyone made their own stories, their own adventure, their own memories. And that is exactly what this game was made to do. So the game succeeded in the way it was intended. And with that, I truly have nothing left to say about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Only that I hope the sequel coming out soon can right some of the mistakes this game has made. But please, like, comment, subscribe, and tell me about your memories of playing this amazing game. Thank you. I have been Marcus Talks, and I will see you in the next one.